Almost everything has shown in American history that whether African Americans, white, Hispanic Americans, whomever are in charge, pretty much you have the same good, the same bad. Your racial makeup doesn't decide whether you're a good leader or not, right? If you like what President Obama is doing, it's not because he's not doing well because he's black. And if you don't like what he's doing, then the reason he's not doing a good job isn't because he's black. He's just good or bad because he's good or bad. And that's the exact same thing that happened. There was some corruption, there was some good stuff, just like with white people. Another law that was passed was the Amnesty Act. Has anyone heard of, do anyone know what amnesty is? Kara, what's amnesty? Oh, I thought you'd know. What's amnesty? You guys read about this. Do what?
I haven't like sports.
Well, Jimmy Carter passed an amnesty rule too in 1978, I think. Where did many people go during Vietnam? Does anyone know? Well, I went to college. Somebody also left the country and went somewhere. Do what? You say Cuba?
I'm having some close.
Whoa. Canada, yeah. It's a C word. It's close. Cambodia. Many people went to Canada to escape the draft. Does this make sense? Jimmy Carter passed an Amnesty Act, well actually it signed, it was a presidential order, that allowed people, because it's illegal to do that, right? So if there's a draft and King's like, I'm not going into this battle, it will mess up my awesome hair. Do they have cardigan sweaters in the military? No, I'm not going. Enough of that crap. Can I be you should be like an army troubadour, right? A guy who, dresses kind of cool and walks around and sings songs.
I'd be okay with that.
Have you guys ever seen Gilmore Girls? Yeah. I mean, I haven't, but that's not manly enough for me. But there's a town troubadour, and he sort of walks around and sings songs, and he's the town troubadour.
Towards the end, they have all the troubadours.
Just that one time, anything like that. Yeah, I guess if there's ever someone ever had to be a troubadour, I think Keaton could be a troubadour. This is his job.
That's an
He
awesome
already
name.
does that.
Troubadour's a good name, yeah. But amnesty was passed because if he went to Canada, it's a crime. If you came back to America, you could be arrested. But once the amnesty law was passed, you can't be. Right? You're given amnesty. What do you think? How do you think that applies to the Civil War?
He went to the south.
Not deserted, but for a long time, Southern leaders, after that first initial where they were all trying to be leaders again, the military Reconstruction did not allow certain leaders to be leaders anymore. The Amnesty Act allowed leaders, former Confederate leaders, to once again run for office.
Who passed it?
Johnson did.
Did he not veto it?
No, it was a Democrat bill. So this is after military Reconstruction, but he ends up being impeached. The Reconstruction itself, the problem was that they passed these laws, right? If you're a black person, what were some of the things that were good for you during Reconstruction?
Citizenship.
13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, right? Abolish slavery, equal citizenship, and so on. That's good. What else?
You got 2 cents?
Okay, for a small time, you had your first crack at like leadership. What taught you to read and helped integrate? Freedmen's Bureau, right? These are some good things with Reconstruction. The Freedmen's Bureau went away by 1872, though. What were the bad parts, though? All these things are good, right? You're getting equal rights. So what's the problem with this?
They didn't enforce it.
It's not enforced, right? In fact, the opposite happens. In fact, many of you have heard of one of the things that helped stop Reconstruction from happening. It's called the Ku Klux Klan. In my regular ed classes, I always ask questions. Remember, a lot of you guys were in that class, right? I would ask you questions like, would you marry a black person? Would you vote for a chick? Things like that. Remember, I always also asked, and everybody's hands on their desk so nobody knew who was voting. I mean, you guys remember doing that if you were in my class last year? Remember, I also asked how many of you know somebody in the Ku Klux Klan or are related to somebody in the Ku Klux Klan? And I've never had a non-AP class that didn't have somebody related to or knew somebody in the Klan.
Let's find out.
Well,
Let's do the
we'll do the questions a little bit. I kind of like to see, kind of tells you where we are politically, and you sort of start seeing where people are at, and sometimes it changes. It's really interesting. Seeing political changes during this class is really interesting. Nobody went through a larger political change in my class, though it's not my fault, than Amanda Wampler.
Yes.
Amanda Wampler went from, and it was not my fault at all, although your mother blamed me for it. Amanda Wampler went from very, very conservative girl to radical, peace-loving socialist in like 3 months. It was really, it was fast. And Holly Wampler was not happy with Corey Sayer.
Do you still offer to call KKK?
Do what?
Your regular classes? You know when you call the KKK?
I have offered, and in fact, I'll do that in here, and you guys have a shot. There is, and I'll show you this eventually when we talk about free speech stuff. There's a KKK website. If you remember, a lot of you, we went to the KKK website. If you guys get, I'll set a score benchmark on the next multiple choice test. If you guys get it, I will prank call the Klan on speakerphone.
Is it based on average?
It's based on average for the class. What?
individual. You must get above.
Right, you cover your ears. So yeah, it's class average. But the Klan is going to be an enforcer of black codes. That's what they were. They were an enforcer of literacy tests. They were an enforcer of black people who wanted to exercise their rights. And they were also an enforcer against white people who thought blacks should have rights. Essentially, if you were a scalawag or a Southern Republican, you could get your knocked on by the Klan, right? They saw themselves as doing God's work. They are a Christian organization. They are, when we went to the website last year, they're a Protestant Christian organization.
Do they get government funding?
They probably don't. But there's all kinds of Christian stuff on there. I can tell you as a Catholic, I'm happy to be hated by the Klan. On their list. Kind of makes me feel good.
Is that public, like you can go check their list?
No, they're not anymore because they can't say, because if they want to have free speech rights on the internet, they can't be like, we want to kill the following. Yeah, they can't do that. But they're openly like, they'll have articles and stuff. You can imagine when President Obama was elected, the articles weren't particularly positive. But there are also some anti-Catholic stuff on there. We're actually going to read quite a bit about the Klan and primary evidence stuff eventually. But it's still kind of around. In fact, when I first got here, my first department chair was a black guy, Chuck Fletcher. And when he first started teaching Anderson County in the early 80s, the Klan marched in the town parades. They were part of like a civic organization that marched in town parades. This is in the 80s. They didn't like this in 1892. This is in 1984, right, when this was happening. So the Klan became kind of a thing. In fact, it became such a big deal that the North started passing laws called Force Acts that actually took the military and went after the Klan. So you've got people trying to stand up to the Klan who are trying to enforce these black codes. Other black codes are non-spoken, like getting lynched. What's a lynching, you know? You get drugged out of your house, beaten, shot, hung, whatever. Kentucky had, just in like, I think, 1869 to 1873, I think we had 115 lynchings in Kentucky in 4 years. Most of them happened in central Kentucky. A lot of them happening because of black male, white female contact. Not like necessarily sexual contact, but just like looking at or talking to, right? It was very, very easy for a black male to get lynched if he talked to a white female. Talk to. You can get lynched by looking at a white chick. You get lynched for walking on the same side as a white chick in the road. So let's talk about Reconstruction ending. So we had some positives, but in the end, Reconstruction is going to end, and it's going to end with the Compromise of 1877. I'll tell you what, we'll do the end of Reconstruction with the Compromise. You can flip the paper over tomorrow. Tomorrow, Wednesday, will only take us a few minutes to get done with Reconstruction. and then we'll move on to some of the stuff you've already read about, right? Because you're already up to urbanization, right, and you're reading.
Yeah.
So probably when you come back from Christmas or come back from Thanksgiving, I won't have you read Henrietta for a little bit. I did not get to Zen, so actually tomorrow when we get done, we'll talk about Zen tomorrow because I want to kind of get far today. And I'll ask you some of those questions and we'll sort of see where we're at in this class. Not just about the clan, but other things. All right, let's talk about the election of 1876. And we'll have some pictures and maps and stuff tomorrow too to round out Reconstruction. Maybe some primary evidence.
What are we doing after this?
Oh, when is your test on Friday?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, tomorrow what we'll do is we'll have some primary evidence. We'll talk about Zen. We'll look at some maps and some photos. Since we've kind of gone over all the notes, so tomorrow we'll probably take like 20 minutes.